Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, folks, Big Paul here today with you, and I've got another super nerdy heart health, safer use, safer PED use video. People seem to like my video last week on cholesterol and heart health. I was actually shocked that bros watched that, and there were a ton of comments on it. I figured like 3 people would watch it, but I made it anyway. I thought it was helpful and beneficial. It was on my mind. Sometimes I make these videos about stuff that I like and I am looking into and things that are affecting my life. So I figure, why not? I'm going to toss stuff out there. I do a lot of consults where I see blood panels, and one of the biggest problems I see with guys on PEDs and their health markers is poor cardiovascular health, bad lipids, elevated heart rates, guys with LVH, guys with high blood pressure, and people don't pay attention to that heart health that often. Cardiovascular health is probably the number one cause of death in PED users. I mean, in fact, for guys over 40, in that 40 to 60 age range, having a heart attack is probably your biggest risk of death anyway. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I would have to imagine that it's probably right there at the top. And PEDs make it even more risky. We're going to talk about how PEDs cause CNS stimulation, more specifically to the cardiovascular system. I'll do another video about the effects on mental health, probably here in the coming weeks. PEDs can have effects on things like anxiety. I deal with some anxiety here and there. I already had it to begin with. PEDs make it worse, especially when you're using androgens, potent androgens that can make it worse. Things like insomnia, anxiety, restlessness, even being a little bit paranoid. You'll see the bro that takes the trend, that thinks his girlfriend's cheating on him, is 2 weeks after he takes the trend. And then because he thinks she's cheating on him, he goes and cheats on her, and then she finds out that he's cheating on her, and then they break up and get in a huge fight because he's on trend and he just made all this up in his head. Or he thinks his friend at the gym is talking about him, and then he gets mad at him. Yeah, I deal with those guys all day long on Instagram. Trend rot in your brain. Anyway, folks, before we get into all that, I want to remind you about the Ultimate Cycle cheat sheet. If you want to keep those side effects low and put together an effective cycle that you can still grow on, I have a cheat sheet I put together. It's 30 pages of awesomeness. I have PED profiles of the major PEDs that bodybuilders use, including insulin and HGH and some peptides. Also, I have information on there about side effect mitigation and how to structure a blast and cruise style cycle. It is super simple. It's easy to look at. It is just bullet points, basically. It's 30 pages. If you want a deeper dive, I also have the Science of Anabolics and PEDs e-course that research scientist Kurt Havens and I have put together. That is a deeper dive. There is about 60 hours of video content over there on that one, and 100 plus modules. That one is more of the 500 level course. The PED cheat sheet is the simple Cliff Notes entry level, 101 level. I think it's good if you want to have it. It's handy to have around. Anyway, I think they both go well with each other. All right, enough of that stuff, folks. Let's get into heart health, CNS stimulation, and using beta blockers as a potential risk mitigation factor in just 1 second. All right, before I dig into this, I just have to put out the disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I'm not telling you to self-medicate. This is just for informational and educational purposes only. Before taking any prescription drugs, you should consult your physician. These are some bullet points that you can talk to your doctor about if your doctor is willing to listen to you about taking PEDs. And ultimately, if you want to be safe, don't take PEDs, but we all know you're stupid and you won't do that because we're dumb bros, me included. We're going to do what we're going to do anyway. hopefully this will help you mitigate some of the potential risk. I just want to give you guys information to help reduce harm and make better decisions in your journey in bodybuilding. All right, so anyway, let's get into it. Steroids and CNS stimulation. First slide I've got here. Bros forget that there's not just androgen receptors in the muscles. There's androgen receptors throughout the entire body, your brain, your heart, your cardiovascular system, everywhere. And the genetic response to some of these things, non-genetic and genetic, or genomic, non-genomic response to some of these things. But people forget that some of us get piled up with the good stuff, also with the bad side effects from taking this stuff. And a lot of the problems I see that bodybuilders have long-term is from abuse of synthetic androgens. Anyway, enough of that. So steroids and CNS stimulation. Steroids activate not only androgen receptors in your muscles, but your heart and your cardiovascular system, your vascular system also have androgen receptors. There are androgen receptors in your heart. ARs are expressed in the cardiac myocytes of the heart muscle, fibroblasts and endothelial cells in the cardiovascular system and heart. Contractility and electrical conduction in the heart is affected by androgens. Androgens can modulate calcium handling, affect heart rhythm, and contraction force. This is where maybe something like a calcium channel blocker might come into play, potentially. Fibrosis and remodeling, excessive androgen signaling, especially with anabolic steroid use, can lead to cardiac fibrosis, which may impair heart function and lead to heart enlargement. We've seen that in a lot of bodybuilders. You couple that with stimulant use, living a high-stress lifestyle. You're constantly beating yourself up. Your sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive. Androgens also stimulate receptors in the cardiovascular or in the vascular system. ARs expressed in the cardiac myocytes, heart muscle cells, fibroblasts, endothelial cells. Effects on blood vessels, reducing vasodilation, increasing vasoconstriction, and can contribute to vascular stiffness. Stiff arteries end up cracked. Your body will lay down plaque to repair those arteries. Those bros on the high-fat carnivore diets with a shit ton of saturated fats in there and an LDL that's like 300, look out. And you're using steroids on top of it, you're greatly increasing your chances of having a blockage or a cardiovascular event. This is my daily shot at high-fat diets in PEDs. Probably not smart to do a high-fat diet while taking PEDs. The effects on, so promoting vascular remodeling, that's another thing that androgens can do. They can increase vascular smooth cell proliferation, increasing arterial thickening and arteriosclerosis. Vascular thickening is not good. This leads to stiff arteries. Influencing inflammation and oxidative stress. You'll see this on blood work with high C-reactive protein. High androgen levels may increase oxidative stress and inflammatory markers, potentially damaging blood vessels. High C-reactive protein can be a leading indicator of poor vascular health. It can be other things going on too, but chronic inflammation is not good. Potential outcomes of overstimulation of the central nervous system in relation to in relation to heart health, where potential outcomes of androgens on the heart, left ventricular hypertrophy, increase in risk of heart failure. We've seen that. Some friend you guys know that is dealing with LVH. My buddy Nick, he seems to be reversing it now, but he had to seriously downsize and basically come off PEDs and really change his lifestyle. I think Nick has some content up about that. Atherosclerosis, I can never say that word correctly. I stumble on that one. Increase plaque formation leading to heart attack risk because of vascular stiffness, damage to the endothelium of the blood vessel. And you couple that with high-fat diet, and then you end up with plaque and cholesterol buildup in the blood vessels and blockages. I don't remember the exact number, but I believe when Dallas McCarver's autopsy had something like almost a full occlusion of his coronary artery. It was pretty bad. So that's something to be mindful of. Hypertension due to increased vascular resistance, arrhythmias, disruptions in electrical signaling in the heart. We'll see that with guys where they end up with heart arrhythmias or tachycardia, where your pulse gets real high. If you're walking around with a 90 resting pulse rate, that's a problem. Endothelial dysfunction, impaired blood vessel dilation, increasing cardiovascular risk. If your blood vessels can't dilate because they're so stiff and hardened, you end up with high blood pressure, especially when you're doing heavy squats, deadlifts. Your blood pressure is going to acutely rise while you're doing that, and if your arteries are stiff as a 2x4, you're going to have a blowout. You're going to have a stroke, you're going to have an aneurysm. We've seen that with other bodybuilders. Not naming any names right now. All right, so beta blockers. How beta blockers can be leveraged to help with some of this. What beta blockers can do is reduce heart rate and blood pressure. Steroids increase sympathetic nervous system activity. Beta blockers can help with tachycardia, increased heart rate, and hypertension. Beta blockers can slow the heart down and lower blood pressure. When people think about blood pressure medicine, they only think about, anymore it seems like everybody's in love with telmisartan. Like I'm on telmisartan. There are other options. There's lisinopril. There's ACE inhibitors. There's ARBs, angiotensin, renin-angiotensin blockers. That's going to address water retention mostly. It's not going to address the CNS stimulation. Also, there's calcium channel blockers that can be deployed as well. I generally stay away from calcium channel blockers because of the impact that it can have on performance in the gym, but sometimes you may need one. Beta blockers calm the overactive sympathetic nervous system. CNS stimulation from the steroids can lead to jitteriness, restlessness, and anxiety due to excessive androgen load and CNS stimulation. It's excessive choleamine, and adrenaline and noradrenaline affects adrenaline, if I can say it correctly. Beta blockers, especially non-selective ones, block beta 1 and beta 2 receptors, reducing these stress responses. We'll talk about beta 1 versus beta 2 here in a second. Beta 1 are probably better for bodybuilders, but beta 2 is casting a wider net and probably can help with some of these other issues. Tremors due to beta adrenergic activity. Why can I not say these big words? I always stumble on these. Beta blockers can help by stabilizing neuromuscular transmission. Improve sleep and insomnia. Some beta blockers may cross the blood-brain barrier and help with anxiety-related insomnia induced by steroid use. We've all had that, the trend insomnia. You ever notice that it's the very potent androgens that cause these problems? Tren being probably one of the most potent androgens you can use. And you end up with all these CNS stimulation issues. I just dealt with a client who's having just horrid acid reflux and hiccups, and it was tren causing stimulation of the vagus nerve. and that led to hiccups and acid reflux from tren. It's not something apple cider vinegar is going to fix. Bros love to fix everything with apple cider vinegar. It's not apple cider vinegar that's causing your acid reflux when you're on contest prep. It's the halotestin in tren that's doing it. So you're not going to fix that with Bragg's apple cider vinegar. You're going to fix it with addressing the root cause. I can help with mitigating with anxiety and panic symptoms. I have had panic attacks at the end of contest prep the last couple of years. I already deal with a low level of anxiety to begin with, and steroids just make it worse. And clearly, these strong, potent androgens have an effect on anxiety. Tren being another one. That's why I didn't use tren on my contest prep this year, because I couldn't sleep. I'd have panic attacks. I'd be anxious. Some dudes are just chill as a cucumber when they're on it. It doesn't bother them. But beta blockers may help a little bit with some of that. Mitigate anxiety, panic attacks, symptoms, rapid breathing, things like that happen when you're having a panic attack. They blunt the fight or flight response that you get. When that dude looks at you the wrong way in traffic and you want to go beat the living fuck out of him, that may help with that a little bit. Or when you think your girlfriend's cheating on you and she's not, may help a little bit with that. Or you could just not take tren. That's another option. All right, so which beta blocker is best? Selective, beta 1, selective, or non-selective, beta 1 and beta 2. I personally use Nebivolol. It is a selective beta blocker. Selective beta blockers seem to be better for athletes. They don't have the strong effects on dealing with things like anxiety and insomnia and shit like that that's a non-selective beta blocker. But they do control your heart rate. They do lower your blood pressure. They do help a bit with LVH, moderate help with LVH. They have, it's talking about anti-catabolic effects here. We don't give a fuck about that because we're on a bunch of steroids. There's no problem there. Exercise performance and impact less reduction on endurance. Non-selective beta blockers seem to limit the top end of your heart rate, limiting VO2 max. So that can be a problem when you're on non-selective beta blockers, something like propranolol. They also can affect glucose metabolism, non-selective ones. So that is another issue if you're taking HGH. Or if you're diabetic or insulin resistant. Anxiety control, they have a moderate impact on anxiety control. Fewer issues with beta 2 related symptoms. The non-selective beta blockers are definitely stronger for performance anxiety. So, like if you're having issues with being upset, anxious, they definitely can help with that. They can impair glucose regulation. I've heard of guys, having a hard time controlling their blood sugar while using a beta blocker, a non-selective beta blocker. There's going to be more fatigue. You're going to be tired using a non-selective beta blocker. When I was on propranolol, I was sitting here at my desk in the afternoon, just falling over asleep. Slightly better vasodilation on the non-selective ones. It's not going to be too much of a difference, but the heart rate control is pretty similar on the both, other than the limitation on the VO2 max. All right, folks, that's all I got for you on this one. Let me know in the comment section if you are using a beta blocker from your doctor. Don't go out and get it on your own. This is something to talk about with your doctor if you think you need to be on one. Present this information to your doctor. Discuss options with them. Let them make the choice of whether or not it's appropriate for what you're doing. They're probably going to tell you to quit taking steroids. I know you're not going to do that. Just tell your doctor why you're not going to quit taking steroids and that you need some help to please help you. They'll come up with the best treatment plan for you. You can explain why if they don't understand, or you can find a doctor that's more familiar with PED users. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your support. Hopefully this one was helpful. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.